There we go. All right, let's kick this sucker off. Boom. Move my ugly mug out of the way. All right, phone goes on silent. Hopefully, everybody's having a good long weekend so far. But figured we go on a little bit of a tangent on training. Obviously, Yeva wanted to ask and see how I actually build training plans and how to go about having productive off-plan meals without having no negative impact to your progress, but obviously still partaking in them. So we'll get started with the training in itself. So building programs for different athletes and body structures. Now, again, we have to take a good amount of things into account, so no one program is the exact same. Obviously, some similarities within programs from class to class, obviously, but aside from that, we really need to dive deep into everybody's program, starting with a detailed physique breakdown. Obviously, when every single one of you had started with me, we had kicked things off with obviously your first set of progress photos, seeing what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are, and really take into account everything within those two sections and basing the vast majority of your training plans based off of that. And of course, as time goes by, we update the training program based on how progression goes. And of course, training volume and frequency always gets adjusted depending on what the lagging body parts are and what your strengths are. Obviously, lagging body parts can use a little bit more volume and a little bit more attention as opposed to what your strengths are. There's no point in us making your strengths even stronger and your weaknesses even weaker. That's just going to make a shitload of negative progress, which we don't want. So, always making sure as well, considering past and current injuries. This might sound very minuscule, but even this past week, there's a new client that just signed on, and he informed me that he had a MVA, motor vehicle accident, where he was hit by a car when he was on a bicycle, I believe. Nothing crazy, but there's a lot of um, muscular damage within his back. So there's certain things that we can't do just yet in regards to hip hinge movements. So like deadlifts, RDLs, etc. Probably can still do them, but within reason, right? So making sure that we take those three main sections into account, the physique breakdown, volume and frequency based on those lagging body parts and strengths, and then your health history as well regarding past or current injuries, and adjusting exercise selection and loading, always, making sure that we are giving you what you need and allowing your recovery to be as optimal as possible. And for certain individuals, we might have to hide things via posing. If you've torn pec, for example, your side chest is going to have to be on an opposite side to hide that injury, as opposed to showing a flaw on stage. That's just a little example, but it could be an array of different injuries, right? And kind of going into direct classes now and how I build programs for different athletes and body structures. Again, bikini, for example, your hair is going to be covering your back for the most part, and you don't need a wicked strong upper back by any means. It's more so focused on glutes, delts, and overall shape. Whereas figure, you are showing that full posterior chain from head to toe. You want the rear delts, traps, rhomboids, etc., all the way down into the erectors, glutes nice and firm, but not too firm, like what you see in women's physique. And of course, a nice little hamstring tie-in. Then, of course, classic versus open. Classic, there's definitely a lot more flow that has to be taken into account when it comes to the physique as a whole, as opposed to bodybuilding. You can kind of work with what you have and just emphasize, I don't want to say everything, but everything, and make your physique as big as possible. Obviously, making sure that gut and midsection control is on point. But the goal of this all is to build the right physique for the given class or division, and not just adding size for the sake of adding size. If you're competing in bikini and you go up there with the horse legs of a wellness category, well, fuck. Like you and I both failed in making you fit the category, you know? Same thing with men's physique. If you're a men's physique athlete trying to do bodybuilding, we really need to take some time to make you fit that new division, of course. So there's definitely a lot more that goes into building a workout program as opposed to just making reps and sets. And if you're coaching people too that also do compete, take all of this into account when you have your consultation calls with your guys or girls and really ensure that you are developing a program that fits their needs as an athlete. But also, if they're not athletes, lifestyle clients, even making sure that you take their goals into consideration in regards to visuals, right? If it's a female and she wants to really develop her glutes, give her the program needed to make that happen. Don't just do what you want and think, oh, her shoulders are weak. Let's just make sure she's got some nice delts. No, take into account everything that the clients are wanting or need for their goals, also for their given divisions. Now, rep and set selection. Of course, this is one of the main components of the actual training program in itself, aside from exercise selection. But the reps and sets range are always based on training age and experience within the gym in itself. This can kind of vary based on how well somebody clicks with learning new concepts or learning new hobbies, I guess. If they're new to the gym, if they're very intrigued and in tune with, you know, not just doing, but educating themselves at the same time, that 8 year window can definitely be short. And it's kind of just an average of what I found working with clients myself over the years that anybody from that 6, 7, 8 year range normally can go with a lot less volume than a newbie would. And the reason for that, newer people to a gym, I often find need a little bit more volume in regards to connecting with the actual exercise in itself. Because if you give a newbie, what most of you have is 2 to 3 sets per exercise. If you give a newbie that, they'll probably just run through those 2 sets and be like, okay, I did it. Whereas opposed to giving them, less overall exercises throughout the training program in itself, but more volume within the given exercise where they have more time to actually connect with the movement as opposed to, just rinsing through 2 or 3 sets and going on to the next, going on to the next, going on to the next. Their mind is not actually connecting with what they're really doing for the most part. Some people can connect with it right away, but for the sake of you giving more benefit to the client in itself, I would always whittle down the actual amount of exercises you give a new person and give them more volume to the actual training program in itself with with less exercises. So say they have 4 exercises, you can probably go with 4 to 5 sets per exercise. Again, this depends on their recovery capabilities, which we'll get to in a little bit. But to reemphasize the fact, the longer you are in the gym in regards to how many years you've been training, you definitely can get away with less. For example, most of my compound movements now are just 1 set. Today I had a hack squat and RDLs. It was 1 set and that was it because I know how to actually connect with the movement. I'm not just there dicking around with it. Get in and get out. Be as effective as you possibly can with as little as you possibly can. That way you can stay as fresh as possible, which kind of touches base on the last point there. The goal is to be productive. We're not trying to destroy you in any sort of means. I don't want you thinking, oh, I didn't feel a pump, but I still did it. You don't need to feel a pump necessarily. We're not here chasing pumps. We're here chasing progression within lifts and making sure that form, of course, which I think is the next slide, is at the forefront of everything. So again, the goal is productivity within any given exercise selection, rep range, or set counts. I guess that would be the best way to put it. Because that is where growth really occurs, not just destroying you every single session, you going in there, doing the job to a high level at every single exercise and every single rep is what really is going to get most bang for your buck. So, exercise order selection. This is kind of a new concept that I've been experimenting with myself as well as with a few of you guys also. But prioritizing weak body parts at the forefront of your actual training sessions. So, for example, I'll use myself. I have weak limbs for the most part. It's always been a thing for me. But now we've moved all my limb training, arms, that'd be biceps, triceps, to the very beginning of my actual workouts in itself. Because A, I'm cognitively more there, if that makes sense. Because I'm just into the gym now. Cool beans. I know what I got to do. Boom, 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 boom. Bang it out in an effective manner. As opposed to putting those lagging body parts, like I think the vast majority of us maybe done over the years to the very end. And you're almost tired. You might not give it as much emphasis, as much oomph as you need to. So prioritizing those weaker body parts at the very beginning of your actual training session, 9 times out of 10 is more useful than not. And again, ensures high quality output and better tension on priority areas. So arms, calves even could be in the same grouping. Um, and I think every single one of you as well has core at the very beginning of their training programs, or workouts, I should say. And it's not to say that everybody has a weak core. Definitely some of us do. And the main reason why I put all of your core work at the very beginning, and sometimes additionally at the end for those that do have weaker cores, is the connection within it and making sure that when you do train your core, if it be planks, leg raises, exercise ball crunches, it could be Roman chair, decline sit-ups, etc. Whatever the core work is, the main focal point is for us to have that connection with bracing our midsection before going into actual exercises. Because a lot of people let their midsections go within movements, or they throw the band-aid on, which is the belt, and just use a belt improperly. You're just pushing your gut into the belt and not actually bracing it. That does not emphasize having a strong core. I haven't used the belt in about 6 years, and my core is still nice and tight, if that be on leg press, deadlift, hack squat, Smith machine, etc. There's no reason to have a belt on unless you have a slip disc, for example, or you have some actual mechanical issue, if that be with bone structure, tissue structure, etc. Sure, if that makes you mentally feel a little bit more safe, put it on. That's okay. But I really, again, have started to emphasize you guys training your core pre-sessions as opposed to post-sessions for the most part to get that core connection. That way, throughout your entire workout in itself, you have that activation already on. So that's the reasoning why. I don't know if I ever explained that to you guys, but at least you now know. And of course, for the people that have weaker cores, 9 times out of 10, you guys have it at the very beginning and a little bit at the very end. So then we got training frequency and recovery and management. So training frequency is based on individuals. Everybody's different, right? And how you actually adapt to our fixed setup. You know, weaker body parts often can use a little bit more stimulus. So, for example, smaller muscle groups, I should say, that be arms, calves, delts. You really can get away with training them upwards of almost 4 to 5 times per week. Right now, there's a couple of you guys that, have smaller arms like myself and really want to emphasize that, or even glutes for some of the bikini girls. You guys are training them, a hefty amount, and we're still seeing progress. And the reason why we could get away with training them a lot more frequent is because you guys have the ability to connect with the actual movements in themselves. So even though we're training them, say 5 times a week for simplicity, you're only hitting 2 or 3 sets tops per session. It's not like you have a whole workout of, just glutes or just arms or anything like that. So your recovery capabilities with doing a small amount, but frequently throughout the weekend itself for these type of muscle groups that are on the smaller end gives you a lot of benefit in regards to actually growing the tissue in itself because we're not annihilating it by any means on any given day, but you're just perking it up every other day, essentially. And of course, we can't do that with larger muscle groups. You're not going to do that with quads or hamstrings or even back, for example. Most of you sometimes have some sort of GH joint, glenohumeral joint movement pre-session, if that be like a rope lat pullover, for example, or single arm pullover. And that's mainly on your upper body days. But the main reason for that is I want that shoulder joint to be nice and warm and open. It's not like I'm actually having you train your back. Sure, your lats, teres major, minor get activated throughout that, but that's more of a joint health focal point for me. So again, larger muscle groups, depending on the person, most of you guys can get away of 2 to 3 actual training sessions per week on those muscle groups. And forgive me if you guys hear the dogs in the background, but it's probably the Amazon delivery driver coming up the driveway. So, is there any questions so far? I know I'm kind of going through it fast. If not, we'll keep on rolling. Okay, we'll keep on rolling. Training frequency and recovery and management continued. So, total frequency is always balanced with recovery and ability. That way, the goal again is not to annihilate, but just simply to stimulate the tissue in itself. If we find that, sleep quality, stress levels, nutrition, and lifestyle is way out of whack, this definitely plays a role in how well you can actually recover. And that comes down to communication, like we always talk about, and letting me know that way, hey, we can pull back on how much actual volume we're doing, given whatever exercise or movement or muscle group, and allow for better recovery. Because if not, we're just beating our head against the wall and it's super pointless. And again, something else to look after is your biofeedback markers, your energy, DOMS, delayed onset of muscle soreness, digestion, overall performance. We have to really take all of this into account alongside with the second bullet point there about lifestyle habits and making sure that again we're staying productive. Because if not, I'm disservicing you as a coach, and it's not beneficial to you making progress in any which way or form. So again, communicate, communicate, communicate. And again, recovery is not a weakness one bit either. It's really, again, the engine for growth, as corny as that possibly sounds, because you're not recovering when you're in the gym. You're recovering when you're outside of the gym. And if we need to add in a few extra rest days, sure, by all means, we can definitely go ahead and do so as opposed to just trashing your system because we're here to create a physique for, of course, athletes and lifestyle clients. But I also want you guys to have the ability to really stay in tune with what your body's telling you, not just following what I say, because if you're feeling completely beat up, we need to have these conversations. I'll use Kendall for example. We were thinking about doing a refeed, or I was thinking about giving her a refeed this past week as she's 4 weeks out this past week from the King Kong show. And I said, just day to day, keep me posted what your fasted weight is and how you feel. And long story short, body weight kept dropping, 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 which is great. And we didn't end up doing a refeed until today, essentially, which is probably 5 days after the fact, just so she really can take part in Thanksgiving because things have been moving so well without us having to make any sort of changes. So giving that a little bit of extra food in circumstances like this, again, is beneficial. And that's just an example. But if it comes to a point where your body is just beat up and we need to make the time to take a step back, let me know. I have no issues with that one bit. Um, Training, execution, and progression of awareness. Execution is everything. Everything, guys. If your standard is set at the very beginning, which it is, of you starting your new training programs, and that standard is dog shit, well, you're gonna have some dog shit programs. I hate to say it like that, but you have to set the tone with ensuring that your movement patterns are on point. I don't care how much weight you really lift. I don't care at all, in all honesty. As long as you are moving with intent on your exercises, that is where progress is made. I can't emphasize that enough. I don't expect you guys to hit PRs every session because that is absolutely insane. And if you are, saying, "Oh man, I hit a new PR, I hit a new PR, I hit a new PR every single check-in," something's wrong. You're not training right. And I really want you guys to take a step back from hitting PRs and enforce better form. Good form at the start of a training block ensures that as we do progress these lifts throughout the weeks and months, quality control is there. Nothing suffers, nothing drops. And again, this comes down to checking your training. If you train alone, cool beans, buy a tripod, record yourself, see where you actually stand in regards to quality. Keep it real. You know, if you're like, that last rep was, semi okay, we'll count that as a rep. No, scrap that. Stop before you get to that shit rep. I'd much rather you do that as opposed to try and sneak in, one or two semi meh reps because those reps are the ones that hurt yourself, right? And we do not need you encountering little injuries or big injuries for that fact. So, when I say send me training clips, it's not for me to kind of just pretend that I'm doing something. It's me actually assessing how well you are actually moving within the gym and making sure that we are making progress within your physique, but also keeping you safe is one of the top priorities. A lot of little niggles can come about in regards to what we do. And the way that we control that is quality control within actual sets and reps. So keep that in the back burner. I have no problems with you guys sending me training clips. Do not send me a Netflix series of them all in one go. I don't need to see every single set. Send me your top sets, especially of movements that are new to you or you're just not feeling too confident on it. Send me them. I'll assess it. I'll let you guys know my personal thoughts. I'll send you revisions of me either doing it or explaining what we need to improve upon. Because again, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to help you guys in every which way possible. And if it comes down to just sending, a minute and 10-second sets of you doing leg extensions, RDLs, dumbbell bench press, I'm all here for it. So it's kind of jumped the gun here. But essentially what I was just saying, sending on in training clips and making sure that we stay consistent as we get stronger. Sure, the weight will go up, but we still want to maintain that consistency with quality reps. Okay. So kind of changing topics now into off-plan meals. And this is more of like how I personally go about them. Again, take it for what you will, but you guys kind of want to know a little bit more in depth about how to kind of have off-plan meals and not have any sort of negative repercussions with them. So, spacing your meals out every 3 to 4 days. This could be, you know, th 2 to 3 days, but I think that's a little bit excessive. Most of you guys that are in the off season have two off-plan meals per week, even lifestyle clients. So I think every 3 to 4 days is reasonable. Um, and just ensuring this allows flexibility while keeping digestion and gut health in check. Now, to make sure that digestion and gut health stay in check in these off-plan meals, if they fall the day of your check-in, I should say the day before your check-in, because you always take your photos and wait in the morning. If it falls your check-in on a Tuesday, take your fasted photos Monday, for example. That way, if you're going out Monday for an off-plan meal, if for whatever reason you get food poisoning, you get the runs, stupid bloated because there's an excessive amount of dairy in, a pasta meal that you had at a restaurant that you were unaware of, send me those photos in your check-in the day before or save them for the day of. That way, when sending your check-in, if something were to go wrong, it doesn't reflect within your actual check-in in itself. We see the true you about how the last 6 to 7 days has actually gone, or if you're doing more frequent check-ins than that, by all means. But at least it doesn't show any disrupted data, essentially is what I'm trying to get at. So keep that in mind. I try and preach this to you guys throughout your check-ins in themselves because some guys and girls still make this a little bit of an error, but it definitely does take into account what I see as a coach on your check-in day. And then the goal with spacing is obviously control of frequency and minimizing disruption of the routine of digestion, kind of like we already chatted about. Rather than treating these off-plan meals as, a full-on day. And I think that normally only comes about when you guys, say, okay, I'm gonna give this little trigger food a shot one more time. And that ice cream ends up being, 2 pints of ice cream with a couple cookies and donuts, and then the sugar catastrophic volcano just erupts and you can't stop. Avoid those trigger foods, the absolute best that you possibly can. For me, I know I have a sweet tooth. In the past, it would always be donuts and nonsense like that, or even pizza. I can't even tell you last time I had a pizza, let alone a donut. It was probably my wedding when we had a donut wall. Um, so just know your limits in regards to self-control and don't even put yourself in that situation. There's so many different foods that you can have out there that are not going to cause you any sort of issue. So why possibly throw yourself under the bus? It's just not worth it, in my opinion. And of course, building a balanced off-plan meal. Even when eating off-plan or going out, having a balanced meal, protein, carbs, fats is our top priority. Don't just go for, again, sugary shit. That's not an off-plan meal. That's not serving us any purpose. We still want actual food. We want quality at every bit and point in time of you putting food down into your mouth. And again, avoiding trigger foods and prioritizing quality digestion with these food choices is our main priority here, right? Um, and to touch base further on that, when choosing off-plan meals, you can always cook food at home. For example, this past week, I wouldn't even really consider an off-plan meal, but I was just wanting breakfast type foods. I just made myself a nice breakfast. Had a few extra whole eggs, some egg whites, some bread, which isn't even in my diet. But I pretty much just macro matched what my meal typically would be with different food sources. So it's not like you have to go out and spend money on, crazy food or anything like that. Get creative in the kitchen, and that will only benefit you as well when it comes time to meal prep because you're learning new ways to cook and you're experimenting with different spices and herbs, etc. So again, it's not like you need to go out and spend money on these off-plan meals. If you rather just make a nice pasta dish at home, make a nice pasta dish. But again, emphasizing the fact of avoiding trigger foods, staying within reason, having a balanced meal. And again, like what we've talked about in most of your check-ins today, is if you know the meal is going to be semi-larger, aka Thanksgiving dinners, pull away some of the carbs from either meal before, the meal after, or both. It could be anywhere between 25 to 40% of the carbohydrate content. That way, you are still staying within your caloric means for the day. That in itself is a massive one in regarding not having the scale balloon way up. So again, my personal approach, my wife Chanel and I typically have 2 off-plan meals per week. So typically one is a healthier one. Again, if I'm going to a restaurant or if I'm making this at home, steak, chicken, or fish dinner of some sorts, or if we're going out for breakfast, steak and eggs, for example, even. And for me, because I know dairy does not sit well for me, I always say no butter, no milk, no nothing like that, because I want to go have a meal and feel good after. I don't want to feel like I'm 30 months pregnant. And I know he's pregnant for that long, but still, it feels uncomfortable. And to just avoid anything possibly negative to happen to your digestive system in those moments is key. So again, if you're ordering food at a restaurant, even breakfast, most places butter their bread. Just say, "Hey, I'd like my bread dry," and they'll understand. So this also just shows, my way of going about things, but typically the second meal might be a little bit more relaxed. Okay. So again, a homemade breakfast like what I did this past week. Burritos, super clean. It's chicken and rice, steak and rice, shrimp and rice. I don't know what other type of burrito you can get. Or wings, burger, and fries from good quality places. I'm not going and getting breaded wings. I'll get them baked or lightly fried, slightly better than the breaded ones. Burgers, again, nothing like outrageously lavish in regards to what you get at like the works where it's got 40 different toppings, all the cheese, all the extra nonsense. Get a nice quality burger, and you're more than fine to have that because, again, it's beef, it's carbs from the bread, carbs from the fries if you do fries, and maybe a salad if you get salad with it, right? And having your setup like that, where A, the first meal of the week is semi cleaner, B, the one that comes second is a little bit more relaxed, kind of gives you that option or the ability to, I don't want to say feel like a normal human being, but have that flexibility and relaxed type nature of not feeling so restricted because it's the last thing I want for you guys is to feel restricted within what we are doing as a client coach here. So, again, if you're doing one, two, or three off-plan meals per week, depending on the individual, where you guys are at within your plans themselves, take all of this into account. I'm gonna post this in the group chat anyways, as well in the Facebook group, the recording as well as the overall just PDF. But yeah, that's the last slide. I want to save the last 5 minutes for any questions if anybody's got any. So fire away, unmute yourself. I'll see if I can pull up the text chats if you guys want to just type. But yeah, the last 4 minutes and 41 seconds is for you guys.
Hi, Matt. I have a question.
Yeah, bro.
Okay, so about the you know how we talked about the volume for workouts and whatnot, for
Yep,
compound movements, you do like one set. Okay, suppose your top set is about 4 plates on a deadlift. Are
sure.
you gonna build up to that 4 plates, or are you just gonna go right off the bat, start 4 plates?
It's a great question. I do one warm-up set. So for example, today I did RDLs, I did 425. I put 3 plates on the bar, did 2 reps, went right into the 425 from there. Because you have to think, you also have all of your work beforehand. I'm never going to have you guys do a heavy compound right at the beginning of a workout. It's either at the middle of it or the very end. So your tissue is already warmed, right? So especially for you, Raf, one set, touch, 3/4 of the weight, do 2, maybe 4 reps, leave it at that, get into your top set.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah. Good question though.
Oh, thanks.
Matt, sir,
Yeah.
question about powerlifting. I don't know if a cycle or like a workout or exercise in your program. Is there any utility for kind of going in that 2 to 6 rep range?
2, hell no. That's a little dangerous. Depending on the individual and the compound movement, I think anything between 6 to 10 reps is plenty. For example, the hack squat, I think 6 to 8 is good for anybody that's experienced. 10, if you're pushing it and you're like, oh shit, I got to 8, I could get 2 more clean ones, by all means. But 2 reps, no, no bueno. I think that's a little bit too much.
Okay, yeah, because I was curious about like the powerlifters coming in with dense muscle, not necessarily like full, but there's always like a level of hardness to the muscle that they gain when
Mm,
training in that way, or at least from what I've noticed. So I don't know if there was anything like that.
you might just be looking at a good powerlifter because most of them I see are quite fat.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, they are all fat, but they're like the density's there, right? And I feel
The
like there's some.
density is there. The density is there. I'll give them that. They got a lot of tissue, but they also got a lot of fat to support the mass that they're moving, right? Whereas everybody in this group chat is not to that degree of size. Um, but when you have that extra mass, if that be muscle mass or fat mass or a combination of the two, you have enough cushion to protect your joints, right? for the most part. They'll still get hurt here and there, but you going in and slamming 475 on a flat bench, I would close my eyes and walk away and hope
Fair
that you
enough.
didn't get hurt. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Anybody else? We got a minute 39.
Matt,
Yeah.
so you said about like the warm up set, like a 2 reps or 3 reps, right? Is that okay, or like we have to target like 70% RP or 60% RP with 10 reps or like a 6 plus reps?
For your warm up,
Yeah,
I would never do 10 reps on a warm up. And again, I would only warm up, quote unquote, on compound movements.
yeah,
And the reason for that is just to get yourself acquainted with the movement pattern.
yeah,
But if you're, doing warm up sets on absolutely everything, I
yeah,
think it's a waste of time because A, you're gonna be in the gym forever
yeah.
and you don't need to warm up on a bicep curl.
Okay,
Does
no.
that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you say that like if we are doing like a bend over row,
I would
we
do
can
one set, one
once. Yeah.
personally, one to two.
And how many repetitions?
If you're doing two sets, I'd do, the first set 3 to 4 reps, the second set 1 to 2 reps.
Okay.
Let's just feel the weight. That's about it.
All okay. Thank you.
Yeah. But we are running low on time, less than a minute. So hopefully that was of use to you guys. If you guys do have any more questions, just feel free to drop it in the group chat and I will answer them via text or voice note for you guys. So I'll log off on here before it cuts us off, but I hope you guys have a good Thanksgiving.